Welcome, fans, to another edition of the Cheap Heat Productions Wrestling Podcast. My name is Jack Kilby, Executive Vice President of Great North Wrestling, and I'm pleased to have on today a career interview with a man who many of us of the fans of the golden era of professional wrestling, when we arguably would say it was the best, will remember from WCW syndicated television. We're going to get into every facet of his career on this interview. I'm, of course, talking about Randy Hogan. Randy, how are you tonight, sir? And thank you for joining us.
Jack, I am absolutely wonderful. It's so good to be back talking to your all your fans and everything else. Like I said, it's been a while since I was on before. I look forward to part two.
Yes, sir. And I know the fan reaction online has been very interested in your story. And in order to set the table for that in terms of your career, were you a fan of professional wrestling growing up? And if so, did you have any particular territories that you followed that may have influenced your career?
Absolutely. I've been a fan since I was probably 7 or 8 years old. My grandparents were big fans. My parents thought, oh, all that fake stuff. But my grandparents just couldn't wait till it was on television or till it came to the arena. Like I said, I was born and raised in the Detroit area. So I was raised and idolized Dick the Bruiser and the original Sheik and Killer Kowalski and Tex McKenzie and the Crusher once in a while. Fortunate enough to have seen in the heyday Luthez, Pat O'Connor, Buddy Rogers, along with Bruno Sammartino. So I really got to see him and was a big fan from day one. And here I am 65 years later, still as big a fan as I ever was. But that's what my influence was, and that's how long I've been a rabid fan.
Well, in terms of, I mean, that territory, of course, is legendary, and some of the names that you mentioned there are definitely all-time classic wrestlers. In terms of your decision to pursue wrestling as a career, was there a moment that you decided, you know what, I want to give this a shot myself?
Yes. I was managing a restaurant down in, well, prior to that, I played in a band. We played at Holiday Inn Circuit in the South here. Wednesday nights, they had wrestling at the Armory, and I went every week and got to be pretty good friends with the Continental Lover, Eddie Mansfield.
Mm-hmm.
He would stay at the hotel there, and he would come in, Wahoo McDaniel, a couple other ones. So I got to know them, and Ted and Jerry Oates owned a gym in Columbus, Georgia, where I was at. So I started going to the gym just to be around Eddie and any of the boys that were there working out. So moving ahead, I got transferred down to Boca Raton, Florida, managing a restaurant, and they closed it. Now, I was still a big fan. Used to go to the matches every couple of weeks in West Palm Beach. Anyways, back in the day, those guys were really kayfabe. You didn't know anything. It was like magicians, very closed, tight secrets. Okay, and as close as I was to Eddie, he never gave on. Nor did Jerry Oates. So they closed the restaurant, and I said, it's been so many years, and I really don't know anything about it. I don't know what's real and what's fake, and I want to find out. So I called Jerry Oates and said, Jerry, do you know anybody down here that trains people? And he said, well, the only one down here I know of is Hiro Matsuda, who did that other Hogan guy, as well as some others. So he said, but I trained people up here, and I knew he did. So long story short, we negotiated. I packed everything I had in my car in Florida, moved to Columbus, Georgia. Got a job at it was called the Po Folks restaurant just like country cooking type of thing. And that kind of paid my way through wrestling school. Now Jerry used to train, but he didn't have a ring. He had like an aerobics room, mats in the back. So you actually learn to take bumps and some of the basics in that on the mats, on the floor mat, on the cement floor, which obviously there's no give to it. So in going through it, we were learning how to do leapfrogs, and I came down on my ankle, the side, tore everything out of my ankle. So that took me out of it. I still didn't know anything other than how to take a bump a little bit. So a few months later, I came back. In the meantime, Ted Oates had opened up a real wrestling school in the same city downtown, but he had a ring and everything. So I went to Ted and started working. I tell you, the first time, and this is the truth, I stepped in a ring, I had tears in my eyes. All I could think of was how proud my grandparents would have been and how lucky I was to be here, So I went through and training a few times a week, learning old school way. You're not doing high spots and doing nothing, when you first start out.
Mhm.
The first 9 or 10 sessions were just how to lock up, how to take a back bump and how to take a front bump, and then how to hit the ropes correctly. And so you worked your way up to wherever it may be. So it was about 9 months later. We were still working, and I went to the matches on a Wednesday, and the guy I trained with was putting up the ring. I said, Bill, what are you doing putting up the ring? He says, well, they rent my ring when they come to town. He says, are you doing anything? Because our training was pretty much done. And of course, I thought I knew it all. So he said, well, I'm wrestling up in this little bar up in about 3 hours away in Athens, Georgia. He says, why don't you come up, bring your stuff? I said, I'm not going to bring my stuff, because at this point, I thought I knew everything I needed to know. And again, I didn't want to be a wrestler. I just wanted to know what was real and what was fake. So I went up with him and watched him a couple of times. And then once he taught me it, I brought my bag, like a doctor. You always got the bag with you.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody didn't show up. So the promoter goes to Bill and says, hey, buddy, want to work? And Bill says, well, I'm sure he does. Yeah. So he says, okay. He says, what's your name? I said, well, Randy Franklin. Because my dad's name was Frank, and he had just passed away. Randy Franklin says, okay, you're going to work against a guy named the Animal, and he's going over. I says, okay. So I go back in the locker room. I says, Bill, I'm wrestling Animal, and he's going over. Now, does that mean he's going over the top rope? I'm going over something? That's how green I was. Now, I could work on the mat, but terminology, they never taught us well. So anyways, I went in and had a match, and he won. And I came back the next week and worked the same guy again, and we had a Broadway, had a draw. So the promoter said, you look a little bit like that Hulk Hogan guy. So we're going to call you Al Hogan. So I thought about it for a while, and I said, if you want to do the Hogan thing, that's fine. But can I go as Randy? I wouldn't know who the hell they're talking about. So that's how Randy Hogan got started. I didn't pick the name. It was given to me. So I went home to my girlfriend. I said, I got to do something. I had the mustache, the long hair always. So I said, you got to bleach my hair. So I bleached my hair blonde, my eyebrows, mustache. I couldn't breathe for a week, breathing those fumes and stuff. So I went back, and this time I won on the DQ. And then professional courtesy, guys you're working with, you get to know, different people all the time. And they're working somewhere on a weekend. And if it's reasonable, you go just to watch them, just to support them. And again, back in them days, if you did that, then they were almost obligated to introduce you to the promoter. So that's how you get working more and more. I go to see this guy in District Motor says, can you work next week or next month, whatever? Sure, I can. I work there. Same story, meet other guys, go there, meet another promoter, go there. So that pretty much took me for, I don't know, probably a year or so anyways, working regularly, just basically Alabama, Georgia little circuit. Now, this is big time, okay? And, they laugh about handshake and a hot dog payoff. That's true. That ain't no lie.
Wow.
So we were driving sometimes 3 or 4 hours to a match for maybe a $25 payoff. And that's what it was. We're in your dues. Then finally I got on a card, same way, and they used to bring a semi-name in once in a while. This one, they were brought in Mike Jackson, Action Mike Jackson, who's still around at 73 years old. He's working at Impact.
Yes, amazing.
So, of course, he was the main event. I was the semi-main. And I said, Mike, how do you get on TV? Because Mike Jackson was on TV every week with NWA, and then, of course, WCW. So he said, I can't promise you nothing, but bring your stuff. You can ride with me, and maybe I can get you on. So I used to go up to Atlanta, TBS Studios, every Wednesday, and they did the TV tapings. Same story. They were short 1 week. J.J. Dillon said to Jackson, he says, you got any boys up? Because Mike, I didn't know, used to bring up the jobbers, enhancement, whatever you want to call them. Mm-hmm. So, he said the pay is $50. I said, great. So I have my first match on TV against the Warlord and the Barbarian. The Warlord, I think, is from Tonga, something. Very, very strong accent.
Barbarian, yeah.
So he goes, so he's throwing me into the ropes. And he says, boo-boo. I was like, what? I'm scared to death. Full of adrenaline. First time on TV, and I don't know what this guy just said to me. So I hit the ropes as hard as I could. Just came off. Then there was like a size 15 in my face. Blood going. Nose was gone. What he was saying was big boot. Watch for the big boot. But I didn't know what baboo means. So that was it. So I guess they took pity on me, and JJ said, come back next week. So that's how I got started with NWA and TV. Then Ted Turner bought it out, and a lot of the guys they let go. You never saw anymore of the jobbers, I call them. They wanted guys that knew how to work, not only to get squashed by a Vader or Road Warriors, but somebody who could get in there with a Brad Armstrong or even a Ricky Steamboat, and actually knew how to wrestle. So a lot of them were gone. You never saw again. Luckily, they kept me, and they kept George South, Italian Stallion, a few others I really can't remember. But we did that right on, and then that's how we got working regular. And then they say, can you work a house show? Because we were just doing TV. They did every Wednesday, a couple, 3 hours. They said, can you do house shows? I said, sure. So I did a couple of house shows down in front of not only a little studio, but here there's, 10, 12,000 people. And then they said, well, can you travel? I said, well, hell yes, I can travel. So that's how that got started. So now I'm doing TV on Wednesdays. Wednesday night, I might be in Greenville, South Carolina or something, to drive away. And then we'd go from there, and we would pack 4 of us into a Ford Escort and drive all the way in one day up to Michigan and work there. And it just went on and on and on until I had a match with Rick Steiner, TV in Savannah. And, of course, he was famous for his suplexes, belly to backs. And I worked him before, and all he landed on my head. I said, well, okay, so I'm looking at him. He was behind me. So I'm going to turn, take it on my shoulders and my back where I should instead of my head. And I caught the back pin of my shoulder, cracked my clavicle. So I said, my shoulder, take it home to the ref. So he told Steiner, who didn't really know what was the problem. So he threw me in and did this power slam through. I never been shot, but I guess if you get shot, that's what a bullet felt like.
Mm-hmm.
So that was that for a while. So I went back to Florida, where my parents lived, and had saved up some money and bought a restaurant in Lakeland, Florida. And then I bought a second restaurant. And it was still going as Randy Hogan's Cedar River Seafood. So I said, well, I had to keep Hogan alive somehow. So I kept my hair blonde, long mustache and everything. And had a little side-by-side picture made. And those pictures where I was like a Ronald McDonald. Kids would come in, Mom and Dad, where do you want to go eat? Oh, let's go see Randy Hogan. So I'd talk to them and autograph a picture and tell them a little bit about whoever they wanted to know, who they wanted to know about at the time, the Sting and people like that. Mm-hmm. So that pretty much brings me up to the end of my full-time wrestling career. I made some calls, and at the time they left Atlanta and started taping at MGM Studios down in Orlando, which was only an hour's drive. So when they did TV, I went back and started doing TV again with them, just when they came down there. Mm-hmm. And that kept me viable, kept me on TV, even though I got my brains beat out. Mm-hmm. I was a TV star, they thought. So that mm-hmm. really pushed me through the restaurant business. And I stayed in the restaurant business up until I got married, which was last month, 12 years. Not last month, a couple months ago. And started doing some catering on the side. And I got a call one day out of the clear blue. A vendor says, do you want to do a convention? And I said, well, what? Again, what are you talking about, convention? He says, a wrestling convention. I said, well, I don't know nothing about them. He says, well, this one's in New York. It's called The Big Event. And we'll fly you up. We'll get you a room. We'll feed you. We'll give you X amount of dollars. And I said, sure, that's fine. So I went and started doing that. I've been doing conventions ever since. And this year I'm winding down and definitely going to put my boots in the middle of the ring or my autograph pencils anyways, the end of this year. So that's it.
Going back to the start, I always wondered when somebody suggested to you, you know what, you look like Hulk, and take on the gimmick. Did it ever flash through your mind that could be a blessing and a curse in terms of future prospects?
I was too green to think of that at the time. All I said in the old pin me, pay me type thing. You want me to be his brother, his cousin, his uncle, whatever? That's fine. I didn't care. Didn't even think about it. And my whole wrestling career, I never said I was related to him. I was his brother, anything else. I had a black velvet robe with a turquoise lining and turquoise trunks and turquoise boots. Ran that the whole time until I got that call for the convention. And Kevin Nash said, Damage 365. And he said, can you do that Hogan thing, Hulk thing? And well, sure. What do you want me to do? He says, okay, let's do that. So luckily, my best friend owned a print shop, and I says, can you get this kind of lettering? And they had this lettering, this Hulkamania returned into Randomania. I had some T-shirts made, and then I bought some bandanas and yellow and red, just license plates and name tags and all kinds of stuff. And that just carried me right on through. So still they say, are you related to him? You're not really related to him, are you? Whatever. You're not related to him, are you? No. Are you related to him? Yeah. So whatever you want me to be. It's showbiz. Wrestling is showbiz,
Yes, indeed.
And you're fans of the lifeblood. So you, whatever they want to be.
The other thing I was always curious about, and maybe it was just, ignorance to the business as a young fan, but when you were doing the matches on television, and it was especially the Crockett era when you started, when there was a big time amount of animosity between New York and Crockett, and Hogan, of course, was the face of the WWF. Did you ever find that the individuals that you stepped into the ring with, notwithstanding the mistake with the Barbarian, but they went extra stiff with you because it was you were somewhat of the personification of Hulk Hogan, the enemy?
Well, I'm not sure, because everybody worked a little stiffer then than they do nowadays. I don't remember many times of really people taking advantage of it or doing what they're supposed to do with us. You mentioned, was it a blessing or a curse, the Hogan thing? In that case, it was a curse because I was never going to go anywhere with WCW, but it was a blessing that those Monday Night Wars happened, and WCW, showing superiority, basically we're saying, we'll show you what we do to Hogan. So that's why they jobbed me out and beat me to death all the time to show superiority over the New York group.
Mm.
So in that sense, it got me quite a ways in a lot of steady work. So I was proud of it. Never was I embarrassed by anything I did or that was done to me. I was just blessed to be the right time, the right place, and conducted myself, I think, professionally all the time. You go in a locker room, you shake hands with everybody. You sit in a corner, especially if you're a jobber. You don't talk to nobody other than that till they come up to you. And most of the big names were very standoffish, I guess, a little bit. Except Terry Funk come to every jobber and said, hello, my name's Terry Funk. What's your name? I'm so glad to meet you, and thank you for what you do for us. Terry Funk talking to me, and I'm in a locker room like a kid in a candy shop around all these people. And so that was that. That was the best. Of course, Vader was the worst, and everybody else in between.
Yeah, well, I'm of course going to ask you about that, but it seemed to me on commentary, especially some of the matches that Shivani provided the commentary for, was kind of a wink, wink, nudge, nudge, Hogan, blah, blah, blah. So it seemed like, and knowing the wrestling business now, you can see that was very much an intentional sort of attempt to talk shit without necessarily acknowledging the competition.
Absolutely. I remember Jim Cornette was doing commentary once. And I think, I don't know, I was working at Abdullah the Butcher or somebody, but he said, boy, I bet he wishes his big brother was here now. Well, people took off on that. So that's how the brother thing got started. Jim Cornette after he started that. So, but that comment, again, got me a lot of mileage.
So my next question is, when you were in starting your career, and you were thankful for the bookings, and you saw the trajectory. I mean, most guys start off doing jerking the curtain, doing jobs, whatever you name it, Arn Anderson, all the way, et cetera, et cetera. When you started getting all that TV work with Crockett and WCW, what was the mindset that you had going in, knowing that your primary role was to get these guys over and make them look like stars? Did it ever occur to you, I'm going to get typecast, so to speak?
Again, pin me, pay me. As long as I'm working steady, and they were paying me, pretty good on a regular basis. If they wanted me to go in and actually work with somebody, I could do that. Or I could go in and just get totally jobbed out, whatever they wanted me to do. But I didn't really think anything about doing the best I could for what I was doing, so I would get asked back the next week. It's all about working for the next match. And the only way to get the next match is to have the best match that you possibly can with the playing the the hand that you're dealt.
So during this time that you were like prior to Hogan's jump to WCW, we remember the big '94 deal with the parade and the signing and et cetera, et cetera. Did you ever get any? Because wrestling is an insular, small community, really, with the participants. But did you ever get any sort of feedback that Hogan himself was aware of you using or having this gimmick, and then getting, for lack of a better word, beat up on the television shows?
Yes. I was doing a convention. Now, I have never met Hogan face to face. He lives an hour from me. He's got a bar there and everything. Just never got there. So Jimmy Hart was right across from me. And I says, wow. So I'm thinking to myself, Jimmy Hart is best friends and business partners with Hogan, in real life. What's he think of that? What, anyways. So I walked across. I got enough courage to walk across the aisle at a slow time. I said, Jimmy, could I get a picture with you? He said, he goes a mile a minute, talks, walks, everything. He's like a hamster on crack. I mean, he's always going, sure, brother, come on over here. So we got a picture, and I thanked him, and I said, I was a little bit worried because I know how close you are to Hogan, and here I'm doing this, but he's aware of you. I'm aware of you, and you go with it. He says, you've never done anything to tarnish the name. When he did NWO, I did heel and stuff myself, doing the indie stuff, which I did on weekends. And he said, no, he said, you just go with it. He said, it's fine. So that affirmation I got from Jimmy Hart, indirectly, I guess, I took from Hogan. And that was it. So I never got any repercussions, nothing bad or whatever.
Always wondered that. And you mentioned Terry Funk, the great legend, recently passed. Did you ever have any individuals that you looked up to or admired their work that you actually got to work with in the ring?
The ones that stand out to me is Barry Windham and Bobby Eaton, the Midnight Express. They were so smooth, so nice. I can't say I really had problems with anybody, but those two stand out as being just technically so sound. And it was nice to get in and at least maybe get one spot or something that, wow, I arm dragged Bobby Eaton, or I actually got a headlock and threw Barry Windham into the ropes or whatever else. I never lost that feeling of that little 7-year-old kid going to Olympia in Detroit, watching the Sheik and Dick the Bruiser, that thrill, that whatever. Now here I am with these names I still idolize, and I'm in the ring with them. I'm locked up with them, I got their DNA all over my body. So, it was just absolutely wonderful experience the whole time. Now it took its toll, physically, which right now I'm on a walker. About maybe a year and a half ago, whatever, I went to bed fine, woke up the next morning, was paralyzed, couldn't move from the waist down. Shit. Then I got some feeling and numbness and went through all kinds of tests and everything. And what happened is all of my nerves were pinched and some of them damaged from the neck all the way down, strictly from taking stupid bumps in that my whole life. So I had surgery on my neck and that didn't fix anything. And then they went down my thoracic, down my back, and I got rods and pins all the way down and around, and nothing helped. So I'm still out looking for that voodoo magic or some kind of a pill that's going to make me at least be able to walk steadily with a cane again. So anybody who says wrestling's fake, I'll whoop their ass, on the walker. Yeah, wrestling not fake. Ask anybody who's around 70 years old.
Mhm, mhm. You did, of course, a lot of work on WCW Saturday Night, the syndicated programs, WCW Pro, blah blah blah. But I find a really underrated era that doesn't get the acclaim that it should, at least coming from a young fan's perspective, is that Saturday night and the tapings at Center Stage in Atlanta. And every chance I get to talk to uh, an individual that worked there, I'd like to ask, what was that atmosphere like? I get varying reports that the fans were rabid, they weren't, and they were coached, et cetera, et cetera. But what was your experience like?
Well, a lot of times an announcer, somebody would go out and actually warm them up, like a comedian would do or something. Didn't give them instructions, but just kind of warmed them up. They were rabid. They were wild, though. They didn't they booed or they cheered, whatever. They were never sitting on their hands. That's for sure. Mm-hmm. It was that way at the small studio, TBS, and then Center Stage. And then when you went to the bigger arenas, even more so. I think they always had a very good hot reception from the crowds wherever they went, whenever they went. Unlike a lot of times today, now they got to put some canned applause or cheers in or something, because the crowd is dead because they're seeing the same thing over and over and over, and there's nothing new. There's nothing much to excite them anymore. Mm. There's no more Hulk Hogan's or Undertakers or even just getting Bray Wyatt getting started. Boy, if they would have ran and he would have been okay medically, use that. That was the next Undertaker right there.
Yep.
Yep. And they could build feuds. And again, back when they had territories, they could take a feud from here to there, and people would follow it. But all that's gone now. So you got the same people working, the same people doing the same moves with the same results usually. And again, people just get tired of it. They pay money to go see it, to be part of the spectacle, I think, like a WrestleMania or a SummerSlam. But, I don't think they're there to get overly excited anymore.
Maurice Shortall, of course, the Cheap Heat Productions main man, is indicating that you are still listed on Cage Match as Scott Colton in the WWF.
All I can do is laugh. I wasn't Scott Colton. I'm not Scott Colton. I don't even know who Scott Colton is. I looked him up and saw one match that he had hair shorter than mine. He was chubbier than me. He had turquoise trunks on, no mustache, and that was it. So somehow somebody got that was me, and I shaved my mustache, and then I went back to WCW 4 years later, which I did for the restaurant thing, as I told you, when they come out to MGM. So I didn't disappear and grow my mustache back again and then pick up. So that was just crazy. I have no idea how that got started.
Well, that's a rare miss from the Cage Match, folks, because I got to put them over. What an incredible resource they are. We'll maybe hopefully have that corrected. In terms of memorable matches on the positive side, what would you, if you had a short list of that during your career, what would those be?
Of course, the Barry Windham. I really enjoyed the Midnight Express. I got to work with a lot with Cornette, and Cornette is the same on television as is in real life. He's just a smart ass guy that's very, very knowledgeable. And it got to the point where a lot of the over guys, especially on TV, they would get sometimes to pick and choose who they wanted to work against. And Jimmy Cornette always picked me for Midnight Express because luckily I was trained to fall the right way. So like a cat, I don't care what they did to me, I was going to be okay. And they knew they could do whatever they wanted with me, as did some of the others. So those were some of my best matches. Working with Sting was pretty, Sting and Luger, memorable. I worked both of them individually and when they were a tag team. So I've been Stinger Splashed, I've been Scorpion, whatever, and I've been up in Luger's rack, So
rack.
Yeah, so I've had all those. Uh, Two of the biggest beatings I ever took was Abdullah the Butcher and Vader, as far as being memorable. I guess I'm still walking and talking, so I guess that's something to be proud of and think of. But those really stand out, you know. Um, a lot of the other matches are just so cookie cutter; they kind of fall in, you know.
Mhm.
Or fortunately, everybody then worked differently. They didn't have like NXT coming up where everybody's taught the same, and then they go to the main roster. They're still doing the same thing. Okay, everybody
Mhm.
I work, whether it be a Luger or a Sting or a Larry Zabisco or a Midnight Express or Vader or whoever, they all come from different backgrounds. So you had to be able to adjust. You had to swim in any pond, you know, and I think that made you a better wrestler, you know, when you got in, because you're not afraid of going in really with anybody as far as, gee, am I going to look good or whatever else. Now you're trying your best, but you know that you can take whatever they give you.
Mhm.
So
Now,
those other matches, those are the ones that stood out actually.
the flip side of that coin that I wanted to ask you about, and I know I've heard you discuss this in the past, but with the lens of individuals that were particularly stiff or rough on you in the ring, do you have any? I won't say they're memorable, but would you say very negative experiences working with those that were perhaps taking liberties and unprofessional?
There are things like that I remember, like Vader's squash from the beginning. You know, um, the difference in that most of the guys in Vader, and I won't say a whole lot about Vader, but he didn't care. The other guys may be stiff, but they cared for it. You know, they like the Nasty Boys or the Steiners. Um, they were always very tight, but they weren't trying to hurt you, trying to get advantage of you. That's just the way they worked. And back in the day, you know, you took it. That's what the game was all about. Oh, I lost you there. I might be going out of juice.
I'm
Um,
still here if you can plug
so
her
a
in or
lot of
something.
them would. Okay, I'm going to go.
It's the one of the perils
I'm
of
looking in.
live podcasting. No problem.
I know it. Okay, I'm going into the studio here. I'm
You're
sorry,
actually.
fans and everything.
Can you still hear me?
Yes,
I can
I see
see you
you
and I
too,
can hear you. Yep,
but
yep. We
it's going to
haven't
go
lost
black
your
anytime.
picture. Yeah, you're good.
Okay, good. I'm on twice.
Perfect.
Okay, anyways, um, good advice. I wrestled in Birmingham, Alabama against Abdul the Butcher. And I didn't talk beforehand or nothing. Nothing's choreographed or worked out in those days. Gary Hart was his manager. So I got in the ring and taking my jacket off. And next thing I know, here comes Abdullah. He had some title, some belt, and hits me in the back of the head with a belt. Now, not with his hand or not with the leather part, with the plate. Bang, you know, wow. So then we went on to the match, and he beat me to death and threw me out of the ring. So I thought it's like a little bit of a breather. Well, he comes out after me, starts stomping, kicking me, gets his kendo stick, starts beating me to death with it. And then he threw me back in the ring. And of course, pinned me with his flying elbow or lat or whatever it was, all that skin he used to slap down on you. So I went to, I'm back in the locker room, as you always do, no matter if you get hurt, you whatever else, you go up and you thank the guy for the match. That's being professional. That's part of what gets you rebooked. So he is in the locker room with his feet up on the desk, smoking a cigar. And he says, "You okay?" I says, "Yeah." And he opened the door. I said, "But you about beat me to death with that kendo stick." He says, "It's good for the business." I didn't understand that until way, way back later. You know, when you are now back in the days, you're right up against the rail, which is right up against the fans. Okay, you're like 6 feet away from them. You can't miss or pull a punch or you whatever you're doing. You got to do it because you don't want them people saying, "Oh, did you see how fake that was? Oh, I didn't even hit him." You don't want to give them any fodder for like that. So, and that's what he meant by that. It's good for the business, which means when you're that close to people, you know, regardless of what it is, you know, be ready to take whatever's given to you. So that was probably the best advice I ever had. Was right there. It's good for the business. So that's
Now,
memorable. Those shots.
yeah, no
Go
doubt.
ahead.
You mentioned there was, and I'm paraphrasing, a pecking order, so to speak, in the WCW locker room. But how was that locker room in comparison to any of the other ones that you've shared? Did you have much contact with, say, Dusty Rhodes, or I guess you were there during the Watts era too? Did you ever run into any of the brass, so to speak?
Yes. Now we didn't really have meetings or nothing to really do with them other than hello or nice job or whatever else. Um, I was in Dustin Rhodes, one of his first TV matches. He was with the young Broncos with him and Kendall Windham.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were in a match and he threw me in the corner and froze. Now, usually he says you go throw you out, elbow, whatever else. He froze. Now, it was only, I don't know, maybe 15 seconds or so. But so I said, throw me in, give me the elbow. Because he used to do his dad's bionic elbow once in a while. So he threw me in, gave me the elbow, and then Kendall come in and broncoed my partner or whatever. Anyways, so we're leaving the arena that night. I was just walking down the hallway, and Dusty was coming my way. I'm scared to death because I never talked to him before. You know, do I say hi? Do I look the other way? Do I nod? What do I do? So I go up there and I'm right in front of him. And he says, "Hoagie." He called me Hoagie, you know, like a sandwich. "Hoagie, thanks for taking care of my boy." So evidently, he either saw or Dustin went back and told him about that dead spot and that I actually called that next couple of spots. So that was the only real acknowledgement I ever had from the uppers of like Dusty Rhodes. You know, was just thanking me for, you know, taking care of his boy. I says, wow, wish I had that on tape. I'd still play it. But then later on, you know, I had a lot to do with Bischoff. You know, he was very much with the boys at the time, very friendly in that. So locker room wise, it was always a very relaxed locker room. WCW. At least on the front, everybody got along. You know, you didn't find any fights or any AEW crap going on in the locker rooms or in the back rooms or nothing. You know, everybody was there to do their job and go home to their family after they did it. You know, it's a job. You know, it could be a postman or whatever you want to be. You know, the thing is, it's a job. You just happen to be visible on TV, but it's no different. If the boss likes you, you're going to work. If the boss don't like you, he gets rid of you. And that goes by reputation. And reputation is not only can you handle yourself in the ring, but in the locker room. Are you professional in the locker room? So,
did you know, given the fact that you were obviously very well regarded in WCW and getting all this television work, did it ever come up, given your connections that you developed in the business, to go up and do some work for the WWF at the time, or any sort of feelers in that regard, especially when Dylan was there?
No. Now a couple of my cohorts went up, and there was like an invitation. You know, George South went up, Italian Stallion was up. I forget how many other ones, but anyways,
Dusty Wolf.
you know, I was happy where I was at. You know, I was working steady with them, and why do I want to go to an unproven product when I'm comfortable and I'm pretty much proven where I'm at? So that's why I stayed that way. Now, I worked against some of the guys that either went to WWF or were there, the independent circuit stuff. Back in the day, the Ivan Koloffs and Triple H when he was terrorizing, um, Shawn Michaels when there's nothing. I actually trained with Marty Jannetty and I. We were both Oates boys. So,
Yes. Yes.
so yeah, I could have gone up and done some things there, but then, well, if I'm on TV with WWE, would WCW want me anymore? And if something happened to WWE or WWF, which I'm not sure of, am I just slit my own throat? I mean, they paid a little bit more, but not that much. Maybe $50 a match. But so, anyways, I stayed where I was, and I'm glad I did. Like I said, it was just a totally different atmosphere back then. There was more emphasis on wrestling rather than the comic book heroes, And again, business is business, and Vince did a wonderful job in creating what he created. Whether you're a hardcore fan and you like it or not, bottom line is he made a lot of money, and that's what it's all about. So I made a lot, not like Coca-Cola, and I drink Pepsi, but Coca-Cola is pretty famous, so can't knock it.
100%. You mentioned the young terrorizing Triple H. What was that experience like? And did you ever have any sort of inkling that he would turn out to be as powerful in the industry as he was and still is?
No, he was very skinny. I mean, he couldn't have been much over 200 pounds. Beautiful, long blonde hair and everything. And he had just come from doing some stuff with Killer Kowalski, I guess, where he trained and everything. And, he was there, but he wasn't there very long. It was just there. But, we just talked general things, not necessarily about going anywhere in the business or doing anything. And, he didn't come across as being knowledgeable or egotistical or nothing. He was just a guy that's just up there for the first time in this beautiful long blonde hair. And that was it. No inkling he would go anywhere near where he went, much less he probably put on, 75 pounds of muscle. So, or injected 75 pounds of muscle.
Well, yeah, it was, he was certainly adept at bodybuilding, and the old Ico Pro that they sold up there for years. Who knows? This is a question that I like to get the perspective of those that did the job. In terms of enhancement talent, whatever you want to, whatever term you want to use. I know our good friend of the show, Bob Cook, doesn't like some of the terms that are applied, et cetera, et cetera. I prefer enhancement talent, but
a good friend of mine lives with me.
Yeah, great guy. The term star maker is also appropriate, but for those of us that remember those years when, in my opinion, and many fans, the product was far superior and it was the best, and lifelong fans such as myself were made. Enhancement guys played a really significant role in the business. Do you believe that we need to have some form of recognition for the role that yourself and others played in improving the business, generating interest, and making stars, be it a Hall of Fame induction or some other form of credit for that important work that you did?
Acknowledgement would be absolutely wonderful. Back when we did whatever you wanted to call us, jobber, enhancement, star maker, carpenter, whatever. We did what we were supposed to do to enhance the guy that we were working. If they were building them up to be a big monster brute, then we're going to be jobbed out. We're going to do nothing. If they want to show their technical skills Then we go in and we actually do some real wrestling, a little bit, anyways, to get them over. We want to show, we want to shine them, we want to shine their shoes. Whatever you're going to be, I'm going to make you look that. That was my job. And if I couldn't, then again, I didn't work. But some type of acknowledgement would be nice. And there was a lot of enhancements, a lot of jobbers through the years. Okay, not an awful lot of them that stayed the course, that stayed around. Me, George South, Italian Stallion, Barry Horowitz, Mario Mancini. Just to name a few, of guys that really did the job and knew how to work. So rather than the guys when there was just a piece of meat way back when, throw them into the Road Warriors for 30 seconds, pin them, and off they go, or any one of a bunch of other ones. So, but it would be nice to be recognized for having some skills, even if that skill was getting beat up by the best of them.
Well, and that's what Maurice and I on Cheap Heat Productions, the wrestling podcast, are trying to preserve for history and raise that awareness for the younger fans that, maybe didn't get to see yourself on television or when it was airing, or have an appreciation for, that role that the enhancement guy played, in my opinion, as a young fan at the time watching, created interest in the product. When I saw, say, a one-man gang go into New York and rip through guys, I really, really wanted to see him when he took on Hogan. So do you think, this is a part B to that question, do you think the business is so far beyond the way it was that if we could integrate enhancement guys again, make the shows similar to what they were before, do you think that would ever work again, or has everything just passed it by?
No, it would not work again for a couple of reasons. One of the biggest ones is there are no big stars anymore. Talk about Roman Reigns and his long reign. Well, what's he had? 30 matches? There are no guys that are working regular superstars like that. There's nobody coming up that they're trying to build, that they need somebody to squash to get them to the next level. Okay. Now they come out of NXT, they give them a couple of TV matches, and they either stay at that bottom card level, mid card level for the most part, or they send them back to NXT. There's no proving ground. There's nobody for us to build anymore. So, you got guys that I think are absolutely wonderful, talented, like a Dolph Ziggler, for instance. Okay. Robert Roode, just guys that never really took off up there. They're so talented. It's just a shame. And they're the ones that are doing enhancement now, who used to be main eventers. So I think that day is long gone. The business would completely have to change all the way around, and it hasn't.
Yeah, as Maurice is chiming in, it's all about selling merch now. That's why they try to have quote unquote household names on TV every week. And also what I think is important is the business is not the business that it was. It's more of a TV show now. And the classic wrestling that we all grew up to love in that model seems to have been, ironically with the Monday Night Wars, when ratings became the be all and the end all, I think it changed everything for good.
Sure. And pay-per-views. Now you got one every 2 months. You used to have maybe 2 a year. And they would build to that. Again, they would start a story, a little feud here, and then it gets hotter here, and then they do here and here. Finally, they're taking it to the end at the pay-per-view. Don't do that anymore. How many times are you going to watch the Rey Mysterio and them against the Judgment Day? I mean, every week it's on, Mm-hmm. Roman Reigns, he's got nobody left. He's beat pretty much everybody. Brock Lesnar was a bit of a showcase guy, but he didn't care about the business, only the money, and did as little as he possibly could. Same with Ronda Rousey. She come on like gangbusters, big future. Lost interest. So they lost interest in her. Now, I don't know who they're going to build up next. They're trying to build that Braun Breaker, Steiner's son at NXT, to push him up to the next level. But yet they got Baron Corbin, beat him clean, who couldn't really cut it, after he lost his initial push. So that's why I said there's nobody coming up. There's just no need for enhancement guys. Problem with conventions too, and another reason, and I'll tell you truthfully why I'm not going to do them anymore, is they don't pay off for enhancement guys. Again, I go by the George Souths and even Mario Mancini. Luckily, most of the conventions are up north for them. I'm down in Florida, so for me, they got to fly me. They got to give me a hotel room for a couple of nights. They got to feed me. They got to pay me. So they got minimum $1,000 out of their pocket, and they're selling pictures for $20, $30, $40. That's a lot of things for people that don't know me. Like you said, the younger generation. You know who's selling? The women. Not necessarily the women wrestlers. If they look good, and that's why they're all posing in bikinis and everything else, it's a TNA show. That's what they're buying. They want a picture taken with this hot chick, where you might have a Virgil, for instance, okay, that was up there and down. Virgil does nothing. I do more than he does. But nobody wants him, but they go for the girls. Well, Virgil was part of NWO. He was Ted DiBiase's guy for a lot of years. He had a lot of main matches. Before that, he was S.G. Jones or something. Did the
Soul Train Jones.
He did the Apollo Creed type outfit and that. He was muscle up in that. Nobody cares. Unfortunately, Randy Hogan's the same way. The ones that have gone to the conventions, for the most part, those that want to get my stuff have already gotten it, and I sell a little bit online too, but that's the whole problem. So the enhancement guys, they kind of fade off and go away. There's no market. And like you said, the younger fans, the younger people, there's no way that they can be made aware of us unless their dad or their grandpa says, "Oh, Randy Hogan's going to be there. Let's go on YouTube. Now, he gets his brains beat out, but let's go see him." So all of a sudden, this little kid saw Randy Hogan on YouTube convention. There he is. A picture, a hug, whatever it is. That's what it takes. Don't happen no more.
Well, it's unfortunate, and I know it's it's a matter for great debate, but I really don't think that those that didn't experience those golden eras would understand or realize how great that was, and it's not just about the death of kayfabe, because in the 90s, after McMahon did what he did there, kayfabe was out, but it was a totally different time, totally different product. And one of the reasons, I'll say it again, that it was so entertaining and so great was because of the efforts of people like yourself. But before we go, Randy, we've burned through our time like I knew we would. I wanted to ask you, in terms of your contributions to WCW and the business as a whole, if you could summarize what you feel your legacy is, what would that be?
That I entertained people. Whether they got enjoyment out of seeing me get my brains beat out by Vader or Abdullah, whether they saw actually some wrestling ability, if they were entertained. If I made somebody look bigger and meaner to that little fan, I did my job, and that's what it was all about. So yeah, I just hope that people got entertainment out of me, out of seeing me get my brains beat out. Tongue in cheek, that's funny, but that's true. That was.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please like this video if you enjoyed it, and click the subscribe